Are you seriously going to eat, you fat blibbity blabbity blob? I mean, some of you might be like,
continual.
why would I want to start this?
Sensitive. She's sensitive.
You are listening to the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing podcast, where we share stories that are, you guessed it, unscripted.
That's the thing, this journey doesn't stop.
It doesn't really
right?
end. We have a general sense of the topic each episode, but really the whole point is just to show up and be authentic and let our inner child speak its truth. And I have continued to work through that story of constantly hearing, well, we don't want, got a hot dog on our hands. Yeah, guess what, Mr. Sabatsky, you do. So I'm so excited that you are here, and it is my hope that you hear yourself somewhere in the story so that way you can feel seen and heard as well. So let's start talking. Welcome to the Tami Talks Unscripted Healing podcast. If you are tuning in for the very first time, welcome and thank you for joining me. You picked a good one. And if you are a returning listener, you know I love you and I am so grateful that you continue to press play week after week and continue to hear these stories, to hear yourself in these stories and hopefully be able to find some healing within them. That is literally the goal of this podcast. And my guest today could not be a better representation of what this podcast stands for. And it turns out I have been sitting next to this woman for the last year or more in the sauna, having no idea the kind of story that she has and the work that she is doing now. And I'm so glad that God gave me that intuitive nudge, or someone said something to get my attention to be like, wait, what? You wrote a book? And that led me to reach out to her and to ask more questions. And it turns out, yes, my guest has wrote a book called Iron Will. And this episode is one of the most beautiful episodes. Talk about turning your pain into purpose. This woman wrote a book so that other people don't have to go through what she went through, or that they could get out of whatever situation they're in faster and not wait 10, 20, 30 years. And so this is exactly what this podcast is about, and how you find the gift in a painful package. And Wendy gave you such an amazing gift in this book, but also within this podcast. She spoke directly to my soul and had me in tears. I know God was channeling through her to me, and I hope that you receive all of the beautiful nuggets of wisdom and feel her energy and her passion just like I did. Before I hop over to the episode with Wendy, I thought I should give her a proper introduction, because you guys know I just like dive right in and forget to introduce my guest. So I will give her a proper introduction. And that Wendy spent a distinguished 35-year career in corporate America before retiring. This woman is not retired. She is busier than ever with this. Early in her career, she served for over 2 years as CFO at a benefits consulting firm and later became a leader for a global procurement, supplier, and management teams. Throughout her life, Wendy has faced and overcome numerous challenges and a lot of childhood trauma, which is a lot of what this book is about. Also, an abusive 7-year marriage. Not to mention workplace bullying and discrimination. After retiring, she reflected deeply on these experiences and came to realize that they taught her invaluable lessons about resilience, about grit, and the power of a focused mindset. All of these are lessons that she now wants to share with the world through her stories. And she did just that in this amazing book. So I will hop over to that episode with Wendy, and I hope that you all enjoy. I am here with the beautiful, incredibly sweet and kind Wendy. And her and I met in the sauna.
Yes.
People are like, is that where most of your guests come from? Yes. I'm telling you, like, everyone has a story.
Mm-hmm.
And we've just kind of gotten to know each other probably over the last year or two.
Yeah.
Just kind of sitting in there, casual conversation. And I think, I don't know if it was people talking about the podcast, and then all of a sudden it started coming out that you had a book, and I was like, wait, what? And then when I heard a little bit more about what the book was about, like, I need to read this. And I'm already starting to sweat, like, because I'm just, it moved me so much. And so I wanted to have Wendy on here because you are what this podcast is all about. When I think about, I'm going to start crying. When I think about, I am. The whole purpose of this podcast was to be able to share people's stories and let people feel seen and heard in people's stories. But so much of it is, how do you turn pain into purpose? How do you find the gift in that painful package? And you have literally done that and packaged it into a book She wrote a book called Iron Will: How to Heal Your Invisible Scars, Unlock Confidence, and Achieve the Freedom You've Always Wanted. This is everything this podcast is about. And it was funny because she messaged me. She's like, do you want to talk first and make sure that I'm a good fit for this? I'm like, oh no, you 100% are. Like, you are the definition of what this podcast is all about. So thank you so much for being here, for sharing your heart and your story with my guest and allowing us to see your inner child and what you have done to validate her and find so much meaning in your whole journey and how you've been guided this whole time.
Okay. Thank you, Tami, for having me and on here. I'm Wendy C. Wilson. Today I am a best-selling author, a speaker, and a coach. I've been in corporate leadership for over 3 decades. And one thing that I have done is help people throughout my career to solve problems. And so when I decided I was going to retire, I had an opportunity to move to Madison about 3 years ago from Chicago. I lived in Chicago for 22. My kids grew up in Dallas, Texas for 22 years. So Chicago 15 and now here in Madison, and we love it here. So I had the opportunity to retire, to sell my equity of my company and move to Madison. And I said to myself, so statistically, a person who has been moving at 120 miles an hour suddenly drastically slow down, retirement, AKA, die within 2 years. And I looked myself in the mirror and said, I'm not ready to die. I have a lot more to give. So I wanted to say, okay, so like always, I would say, okay, I'm pretty structured. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to decide what I want to do. And they also say, do something you like, then it will not be work.
Right.
So I said, okay, so I'm going to just sit down and write down a list of things I like to do. And I'm going to pick it and then do it. So next morning, I sat down with a pad and pen. I looked at it. Nothing. Next day, I sat down, looked at it, blank sheet. I got a little sad. I said, I don't know what I like. I don't know what I like to eat. I don't know what I like to do. I don't know where I want to go. Why? Because for all these years, it's always been the kids. Where do they want to go? Where do they want to eat? Where do we want to go for vacation? It's always the husband, right? All of that. But if you ask Wendy, what do you do at work? I can rattle it off in 5 minutes, who I am, what I do, what are all the achievements I have. I can do that. But as a person, I have lost my identity. And I was very sad. So I decided I can figure it out. But I have been very blessed. I always think I can figure things out. And when you think that way, you have that mindset, you always will. You figure it out. Even plumbing. My sink gets stuck. So that's what I decided. I started saying, okay, I'm just going to data dump. I'm just going to free write. I'm going to just write. And the more I write, the more my feelings flow. I've been holding myself so tight. The more I write, and I love to write. The more I write, the more it flows out. So that was the beginning of this book. So back many, many years ago, I grew up in a home that love is conditional. Approval has to be earned. So that's how I learned to be who I am. Right. So my dad, I think if you asked me my childhood, I would say fear is a condition, is a companion of my whole entire childhood, all the way to adulthood. Fear. Because my dad was a functional alcoholic. He can function, but he's an alcoholic. He beats my mom on a regular basis, have his mistress live with us. So to give you an idea, we have a little tiny house. There were 10 of us in that house. It's my father, my mom, my father's mistress, and 7 children, all under one roof. So you can imagine the chaos and with the beatings. I feel like when I was growing up, I feel I'm living in a minefield and I have to be very careful where I step, what I say, what I do, because I don't want to be the one who caused the explosion. So my dad starts to beat my mom and the other 2 people that he beats. He doesn't beat me, and I'll tell you guys why in a minute, but he beats 2 of my other sisters. So I'm always vigilant.
Yes.
But I think this is really, I'm not a psychologist, but this is really an awful way to live.
Yes.
Always in that fear, always that becomes, what does that manifest to be is that no self-worth, the people pleasing. I'm always doing everything everybody wants. I'm the peacemaker in the house. I'm all that. So no confidence in myself and my abilities. That's my childhood.
I've talked about this a million times on this podcast about, the emotional needs. And even if that situation would have looked different and there still would have been that many kids in the house, meeting the emotional needs of all 7 kids is really hard as even 2 functioning parents. And now you throw in all of these other variables and the fact that there is physical abuse and walking on eggshells. You were constantly in a state of fight or flight in survival mode.
Yeah.
And I just saw something the other day about how a lot of kids, that's how you grew up. And so sometimes we think that we're behind, but it's like you were in survival mode when everyone else was learning basic skills and how to communicate and just healthy development. And so when you think about that as a kid and that fear was your companion and that you spent how much time and energy in defense mode, in protection, like that's exhausting. And there's no way that your nervous system becomes wired for that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I think I learned the fun side of it from my mom.
Yeah.
You see, she has such a hard life. She's beaten by her husband 2, 3, 4 times a month. And she's still a happy-go-lucky. She's a happy woman. Whenever my dad is not home, he's at work. We all do chores. We do everything with her, and she made it fun.
Yeah.
She made it fun for us. So that's the way she does it. And the other thing, cannot tell anybody what happens in the house.
Right. Yep.
It's like you never air your dirty laundry, especially even in the Asian cultures.
Right.
Especially so.
Uh-huh.
So we are, everything is a secret. Everything is a secret. Until today, some of my sisters are still like the simplest of things. They are like, don't tell this person this, but I'm going to tell you this.
Yeah.
Well,
and again, I've talked a million times here. The whole point is to validate our stories. But when, as a kid, you feel like I can't tell anyone this, or because the consequences are way too great. And in your case, could have resulted in physical violence. But sometimes telling anyone could have just meant feeling cut off from that supply, whether it's love, attention, affection, whatever it is. Kids will do, or I should say their egos, their protective ego will do anything to make sure those needs are still met, even if that means staying in an environment, tolerating behavior that we shouldn't.
Yes. My parents, even my mom, never said they loved us. Now we do it differently with our kids, right?
Yes.
So coming back to why my dad don't beat me, that's an interesting story.
Yeah, it is.
So I am actually, my mom, I said there are 7 kids in the house. My mom actually has 7 girls, and she, poor mom, has to keep going until she get a son because the son will carry on the name. So she got to keep going. So I'm daughter number 7. And then the next one is my little brother came. So number 8. But I have her 5th daughter died. I've never met my sister. She died when she was young from illness. But so there are now 7 girls and 1 boy. So she has to keep going until she get the boy. So I am considered the lucky child because I brought the little brother.
Wow.
So now on top of that, my dad was a Taoist. So he carries this little almanac, a red little book. I always see him reading it. they consult the little almanac for auspicious day to do this, or
Yeah.
they want to move. What is an auspicious day? According to that book, the day and time that I was born, I'm considered the lucky child that will bring wealth and prosperity and luck to the head of the household.
Yeah.
So here's the validation.
Right.
Here she is. She was born, and then my little brother was born 3 years later.
Wow.
So I'm the first validation. Second validation was after I was born, my dad's financial situation status got better and better. We've always been renting little apartments and rooms, even in bigger homes. But then we were able to afford a little home of our own. So he got better and better financially.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he doesn't beat the golden goose, right?
Yeah.
In other words, so I am definitely not the lucky child. I will say that. The only lucky thing about me is because my dad thinks I'm the lucky child and I'm spared of the beatings. But I don't feel lucky at all. I feel really guilty
Right.
growing up.
Oh my gosh.
Because I always think that if I will get a fair share of my beatings, because I wasn't the nicest kid either. But if I get the fair share, maybe my mom won't get beaten so often.
Right.
Maybe my sisters won't get beaten so often. So I have that guilt
Right.
behind me on top of the fear. So, and I was an extreme introvert.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I do when as a child, I go inside myself.
Yep.
I know the report every year from the teacher, the comment is she's a dreamer. She doesn't pay attention to the class. She is dreaming all the time because I'm in a world of my own.
Yeah.
And I love to read, right? So I'm in those stories. I'm Nancy Drew. I'm dating myself. I'm Nancy Drew, solving these adventures and stories and all that.
But isn't that what a lot of times kids do that come from places like that where you have to dissociate? You have to somehow be able to check out of that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go to some fantasy land because that reality is so painful that
Yes.
you get really good at checking out and going somewhere else.
I love to live in my little world.
Uh-huh.
And I love the rain. So when it rains, I sit by the window and watch, and I imagine myself miles away. So that's how I cope with it when I was young. And you never were able to verbalize all that.
Right.
That intensity of my emotional health, I carried it all the way to adulthood.
Right.
Into my relationships. And I was in a 7.5-year abusive marriage. I'm not a counselor or psychologist, but
you've lived it.
There is something.
There is something when you have gone and lived through it.
You live in that environment, you seem to. I think it's because when I examine myself nowadays, I think it's because I have such low self-esteem. I think so little of myself. I was also an extreme introvert. When you're in that state, you attract bullies. Because they are looking for those victim, weak people, right? If you're in your face, they are not going to mess with you. Bullies back away when you confront them. So they are looking for that kind. So I was attracted to this man. So that's a story for another day. That's how I was trapped from the childhood. Then when I leave, we don't leave our home until we're married. So we live with our parents all the way till we're married. Then we leave the house. Mm-hmm. So from one household to another household. Yeah. The saddest part of all this was I thought it was normal to get beaten. Right. The only example I have are my parents.
Yeah. That's your conditioning. This is what I know. This is the example. You don't know what that healthy example is.
Yes. And I used to think, wow, at least he doesn't beat me as bad as my dad beat my mom.
Right. Oh.
That was a mindset I have.
Yeah.
But then it took me to hit rock bottom. For me to wake up one day and realize, Wendy, you have a choice.
Yes.
You have a choice. You can continue this or you can break the cycle.
Ooh.
Yeah?
Yes.
So I decided to break the cycle. I walked away from my marriage. The best decision I've made in my life. Best decision. Yeah.
And that takes a lot a lot of courage, especially coming from that environment. Because one, like you said, this is what I was used to. This is what I know.
Yeah.
And we rationalize things. I didn't have it as bad as my mom. And I can't think of how many friends or women or just anyone's stories like, well, I didn't have it as bad as. And like anytime we do that, your inner child is just like, no. This is our story. This is our experience. This is what we are worthy of.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting, when you talk about, you listed off the things about being a people pleaser, and like I related to every single one of those. But my childhood story is very different than yours. And that's part of, again, with this podcast, is helping people see that the result can be the same of turning into the people pleaser and all of those things. But the wounds and how they are formed can be very, very different.
Yes.
And in those cases, like those are some really big traumas to witness.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't even necessarily have to happen to you.
Yeah.
But you were there and you were
Right.
a witness to them, and that does something to you. And so making sure that we're not just sweeping things under the rug or ignoring it because it didn't necessarily happen to you.
Yeah.
You were there and you were experienced that, and you feel people's emotions and you want to take on their pain. You were willing to take some of those beatings because you wanted to relieve your siblings and your mom of that. The emotional toll, the energetic toll that takes on people.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so just making sure that everybody, regardless of what your story is or your experience, is that your experience and story is valid. And there's so much healing to be found in that, because like you said, what happened in my childhood, if I wasn't going to break that, I was going to repeat that exact same pattern. And we see that over and over again.
Yes. And I wasn't going to subject my children to what I grew up with.
Yeah.
Right. Middle of the night, you hear all this screaming and fighting. And because I'm one of the younger ones, I would hide in a bunk bed under the second lower level bunk bed with my brother. And today I can still, when I'm talking about it, I can still feel him shivering next to me. We were both scared. We hear all the screaming, and my older sisters would try to help and prevent the things from happening. And all of that was just, you can't, even when I'm talking to you guys about it,
I can feel it. Like
my heart is pounding.
Takes you right back.
Takes you right back to it. It's hard. I'm not saying this is overcoming adversity and trauma is not a one-time event.
No.
You have to make that choice to heal every single time it comes up.
Well, and what's interesting too is it can come up whether you're directly talking about the story or anytime someone raises their voice. Yeah. Anytime you're at a restaurant and you hear confrontation, people arguing can be a trigger.
Yes.
And that same feeling comes back, even though it has nothing to do with that. You weren't even talking about it. It brings you right back, and the inner child is feeling that all over again.
Yes. And that's the trauma. And on the personal side, I was the darker skin than my other siblings. They are nice and fair. And then at that time, people revere the whiter complexion. So I'm always the ugly one. In a spring break, when we take a break, we will go, and one of my sister and I will go visit my aunt, and she's a school teacher, and she would take us over to her friend's house, and we'll spend all day at the friend's house, and they play mahjong and all that, and then we kids just play on our own. But then I remember these women that were playing mahjong with her who said, "Who is this one?" They say, "Oh, they're sisters." And one of them said, "These two come from the same parents?" And then they continue to say, "Oh, you are so pretty. You're so cute. You're so," to my sister, that they don't have to say I'm ugly. I'm not stupid. Okay, I'm ugly. All right. I have another sister, who is also darker complexion. And she and I both grew up thinking we're the ugliest thing you've ever seen in your life. So on top of that insecurity and that fear and all that, I'm ugly. Right? So fast forward, when I moved to the US, and I was at the bus stop, and people are trying to date me, trying to get me out to go have coffee or whatever. And I'm like,
what, me?
And they're talking to me.
Wendy, you are
ugly girl here.
I can't even tell you how much you are speaking to my inner child right now. In episode 1, I talked about, why do I have all these body image issues? I wasn't an overweight kid,
Mm.
but the sister right above me was the tall and skinny one. And it was people commenting about her all the time.
Yeah.
Like, oh, she's so tall and skinny. They never directly said like, well,
Yes.
you're this
Yes.
fat, whatever, but that's what my ego heard. And so I told myself this story. So everything you're saying, like, oh my gosh, like I feel so seen right now. And that's what's so interesting. Again, nothing that happened directly to you, but the way our ego will spin stories and create this story, we have to be able to recognize that and realize like, what is the truth? And so sometimes in that situation, like, are they talking to me? And it like challenges that. And it takes a lot of work to believe that and to work through that worthiness.
For the longest time as an adult, I didn't believe that.
Yeah.
I believed I was not so smart. I believed I was just telling Tami before that I have a lot of successes in my career. Now, I want to talk about angels in my life. I really believe, I'm a Christian, so I believe in God. And I believe God put angels in my life at the right time, at the right moment when I needed.
Yes.
And some of my bosses were the angels. The ex-husband would come to the office to threaten me. The receptionist knows him. They see him come off the elevator, they call me, and I run into my boss's office to hide. And my boss walked out there and said, if you do not leave, I'm calling the police. I started my career as a financial analyst, so everybody knows my story. So those were the extent of the trauma that I have dealing on a daily basis at my place of work.
You can't even escape it at work.
Yeah, I can't even escape. So I finally had enough. This was at the time divorce was not very prevalent. I'm originally from Singapore, so they were not very prevalent. We have to wait for court dates to go get a divorce or whatever. We were separated, but he comes back to threaten me and all of that. So I went into my boss's office and said to him, if I get a chance to move to Dallas, would the bank give me a job? So that's how I came to the US. They got me a visa. They got me here. At that time, my mom is always said, you are so young. I was in my early 30s. And my mom said, you're so young. You need a husband. You know, the old mentality, you have to have a man to support you. But I said, why? This is probably a family show. I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it.
You say
I need sex. I'll go get somebody. I'm that kind of rebellious kind of person, right? At my
that is being turned into a clip.
Yes, and my mom. I don't need to get married. My mom's like, no, you need a companion for when you get old, when your kids leave you. So I wasn't in that mindset, to be looking for a husband. When I came to Dallas, I didn't know a soul, just the people at the bank that I worked with. So I have 2 little kids, daycare, right? And then come home. My priority was to make sure they settle well. They speak English, so it's not a problem. So that is one problem solved. And I just need to make sure I get there in time, the daycare to pick them up and then get them home and feed them. That was my focus in getting my kids taken care of. And we are financially secure because I was the only sole provider for them financially. I never got any financial help from my ex-husband. So that was my focus. But God has other plans sometimes, right? But then people started calling, dating me and all, but I wasn't interested. My focus was when I am at work, I need to focus on work. All these things can wait. And I think I trace it back to, I watched my mom. My mom was able to put aside all that thing that the husband is beating her. She has a husband's mistress living in the same house and they have to live together and see each other every day. And she has to share her husband with somebody else. When we get older, we used to say, how does all this work? Right. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, my mom, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, the mistress, and Sunday, take a break.
Right?
How does all this work? And I think the majority of problem was because of this living arrangement that my dad had insisted was majority of a problem, right?
Ooh, that's so confusing as a kid.
Yes, as a kid.
I can't even imagine mom. Like, that breaks my heart.
Yeah. So my mom was still always the happy person. She's always making jokes, having all this fun, even washing the carpet and all that. she makes it fun. She's just a fun person. So I think because by watching her, she is able to put aside her sadness and all of that, put that aside while she spends time with her kids and enjoy it. So I think it's not a conscious act,
Right.
but it's unconsciously you soak up these kind of things. That's why I want to tell your viewers that if you have children, remember your kids are always watching.
Always watching.
You can say they don't know. They do. Kids are really smart.
They're very intuitive.
They catch on. They see the little behaviors we think we are hiding, but we don't. So your kids are always watching. So I try to put on a brave front. I always maybe overly do it. So when I go to work, I tell myself I have this switch. I'm at work. I'll think about it later. There's a danger to pushing it out and pushing it out. You do need to address it.
Yes.
Need to make time to address it. But for when you're at work, that's how I deal with it. I'm at work. I always think I must do the best job I can for the person that gives me a paycheck. My interest will be their interest will be my interest. I need to do the best job I can for them. And that was how I do it. I am remarried. So my current husband would relocate and I would give up a job. To me, titles and all that doesn't mean anything to me, really. I don't chase titles. So I would give up a good job and then I will go and work in a lower level position. And I very quickly rise up because people can see that you really care. I really care about the job I'm doing.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I would encourage everybody to do is just be yourself, be honest, and just do the best job you can. And so because I'm able to what I call compartmentalize, I'm able to function fully. And there are other tricks that I talk about in the book that I get myself, the negative self-talk, right? How do I get rid of that? I do all of that. But slowly but surely, I'm getting back. My job requires me to talk.
Yeah.
So even today, my friend says, the jury is still out. You say you're introvert now.
Yeah. You just came on here and you just took it.
The jury is still out on that. But I am an introvert. I met some stranger in Austin. I just came back from Austin airport. And I told him I'm introvert. He said, oh, you don't look like introvert. But when I told him that when I talk to people, I need to reset. I need to rest. I need to quiet time for myself. That's one indication, right?
Yep.
But whatever you are, I remember the very first bank that I built in Dallas. This bank was headquarters in Houston. So because I was in charge of building the bank, the little branch, all the people from head office came. There were probably about 30 people in the lobby and the opening day ribbon cutting. The chairman came. And since I was the one who built the bank, they asked me to say a few words. 30 people. To this day, I could remember my voice was just shaking. Public speaking is fearful for a lot of people. But why did I do that? Because I didn't think I was good enough.
Right. It all comes back to those childhood wounds. Right back there. Here I am. I just built this bank. They asked me to cut the ribbon and I don't feel worthy. That's our inner child.
Yes.
Yes.
And I really think that it's very hard to get rid of, but we need to, what I say, one of the things you need to do is, yes, I am scared. Do it anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
Do it anyway. My one word for this year, 2025, my husband and I always plan for the next year, what we want to do and all that. But I always have a word for the year that I keep in mind. And my word for this year actually is to be bold.
Ooh.
And you know what? Because I have that word, I said that everything that I'm like, oh, maybe not, maybe later, maybe, I don't know if I can. No. Well, what's your word, Wendy?
Yeah.
Be bold. So I did. So a lot of things, I step forward, I raise my hand, I do all of that because of this one word. So I have these little things that help me. Studying personal development is very important for me. I love to learn. So those also help.
Yeah.
Those really help. I keep all these gurus, one-liners in my mind. I wrote this book because Ed Milet told me I could do it. He said, you are qualified to write, to do whatever because of your pain, not in spite. Because of your pain, you are
Ooh.
qualified. Because before I wrote the book, I said, who am I?
Who am I?
Who's going to read? Who, why would anybody read my book? So I keep these little one-liners, right? And
Yeah.
he just said, one more. At the gym,
Yep.
I do 20 burpees, I do one more.
Yes.
I do run 5 minutes, I run 1 more minute.
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah,
And that
so
it's like these little anchors, right? How can I anchor into that truth? Because there's going to be moments
yes.
that I'm going to be triggered and it's going to want to take me right back to
Mhm.
those places of unworthiness or take me right back to some of those childhood experiences. But right now, when adult Wendy, wise Wendy is here in the driver's seat, how can I anchor into what I know to be true?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
if you can anchor into those things, you can help guide your inner child back. Like, no. The truth is here. It's not there anymore. That was in our past. Those were old
Yes.
stories.
Yes.
This is our truth now. But you have to have those anchors. And sometimes
Yes.
that word is that anchor, that there might be a person that, like, I know when I call this person, they're going to pour into me and remind me.
Mhm.
But you need to have those things in place
Mhm.
because
Yes.
you can get triggered. Like I said, just walking down the street or even going to the gym, someone makes a comment, not even about you, or you hear a noise. There's a smell. There's all kinds of things that can take you right back. And all of a sudden you're acting from that wounded child versus your adult self.
Yes. Yes.
And I had a conversation recently. Someone made a comment and it was like a very clear, healthy boundary that was like, that's great. Like, yes, clear communication. I love it. But man, did it trigger my inner child where all of a sudden she felt like she did something wrong and she was ashamed and she was embarrassed. But adult Tammy was like, oh, thank you. Clear communication. I know where I stand. I know what I need to do.
Yes.
But it was so clear how different they were. And if I wasn't careful, I would have stayed in this. And I have done that where then my ego takes that feeling and ruminates and creates this massive story. And you go right back to, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough.
Yes.
And it's like, no, it was a simple, clear thing.
Yes, it's not easy. I would say it's not easy. They said the first step to change is awareness. You got to be aware of where your thoughts go, right? If you're not aware, you keep going down that
Here's
crooked
an autopilot.
path. Yeah. So that's why I did the personal development, really focus on that. I have a coach that for the last year, I said, I'm going to work on myself. So what was my improvement last year was that I am become so much self-aware. So what does that do for me? I can stop myself.
Yeah.
I can stop that negative talk. I can stop the automatic response. Someone pissed me off. I'm going to, say something back, strike back. But I now can pause and respond, not react.
Yes.
So those are just some of the things that I continuously do for myself. And I feel that it has helped me so much, so those are just some of the tips that I have.
Well, and it's such an automatic response because it's been conditioned, because that was most of your life. And that is how you were taught literally how to survive.
Yes.
These conditioned responses is if I shrink, if I get quiet, I won't rock the boat. So if you're in a meeting at work and people are sharing ideas or like, well, this isn't working and you did that and there's tension, it might be your default to like, I'm just going to shrink down. I don't want to add any fuel to this fire, but I have this great idea that could actually solve this problem.
Yes. And you bring up a really good point. In the beginning of my career, I would not raise my hand. I'm one of those that sit in a meeting. You know how people comment about you afterwards and say, she was there, but she never said a word, and that was me. I would not, because why? I was afraid to say something stupid or they think I'm stupid or whatever, right? And then every single time I'm sitting there and they ask a question, somebody else answered it. I answered in my mind, but I never spoke up. But somebody answered and they're like, oh, what a great idea.
And now you're sitting back there like angry and resentful.
Yes.
Like, I knew that too.
I thought about that too. I said that too.
Yeah.
But then how does it start to get you to raise your hand?
Yeah.
Just start. Do it anyway.
Right. Well, and that's where it comes from, having that kind of unconditional love for yourself.
Yes.
And that it doesn't matter if they think this is a stupid idea. This was what I thought I'm coming up with and I want to share this. And not seeking that outside validation and knowing that that love from you
Mm-hmm.
is unconditional. Like that is all your inner child wants because you were taught it was conditional. You were
Yes.
taught that performance and you were taught that in order to receive love, it needed to look like X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
And that is
Yes.
this deprogramming that we have to do and learn, how can I love myself even if no one thinks it's a great idea?
Yeah.
Even if I gain 20 pounds, even if I'm getting a divorce, even if, how can I still love me?
Yeah. And one of the things, even till today, I review my values, my core values every morning.
Wow.
When I sit at my desk at 8, I start work at 8. I sit at my desk at 8, and first thing I do, I look at my core values and then my goals for the year. I look at it every morning. That's kind of to help me set my day. That remind myself who I am, right? Or who I want to be. Still working on it. And one of the things, the last part of it, I have a sentence that said, you are not broken. You don't need to be fixed. I still remind myself. I still need reminding, you know? Yeah. I remember once I was, this was in Texas. I have a boss that says, Wendy, he thought it was a compliment, but it kind of got my mind working. And he said, yeah, Wendy, you are like that little Chinese girl in the basement cranking away. He meant for it to be a compliment, I think.
Best of intentions. It was really wrong.
Not came out a wrong thing, right? So we like you there. So no one knows all this thing that I present was your work. You were cranking out in the basement like a Chinese girl cranking out in the basement. What did I hear? I heard, okay, time for me to move on. He doesn't think I'm worthy of coming up from the basement.
Right? We appreciate everything that you're doing, and it makes us look
But
great.
I
And
like
thank
you
you.
to stay there. So, like I said earlier, we need to, not just for children, we need to be careful how we say things, you know?
Yes.
Well,
and how amazing in that moment to not attach to that and like, oh, he's right. That's where the only place I'm good at. That's where I belong.
Yeah.
Where you were like, oh, hell no. Oh, no. And that's the difference. Like you have that decision point in your life in many aspects where you're like, no, I'm not tolerating this anymore. I'm changing this story. I'm worthy of more. Everyone, we have that decision point. And if you don't take that pause, you will go right back into default mode.
Yes.
And that's where when you talk about, I've mentioned this before on the podcast, is that purposeful pause. When I feel that trigger, when I notice it coming up in me, and oftentimes it will be some sort of physical sensation. You will feel tightness, or you might start sweating, or you get really nervous, or you feel it in your throat, or whatever it is. You will feel that trigger. You will feel your inner child being like, something doesn't feel good here.
Yes.
And if you can pause and sit in that and be like, taking that breath, learning how to regulate in that moment, to then let wise Wendy say, no, you are worthy of more.
Yeah.
You are getting out of this environment to where someone actually values you and appreciates you, because I value and appreciate you.
Yeah. So it takes baby steps. There's all these defining moments. There's not one defining moment that changed your life completely. Every defining moment, you need to learn how to recognize it and then take the right action, take the right road, take the pivot, whatever you need to do. But those are those defining moments. And I have many in my life. And sometimes you do it right. Sometimes you don't do it right. Right. I also have another way that I tried, in life, you're going to get disappointed. You're going to get angry. You're going to get frustrated. I always give myself 3 days to feel sorry for myself.
Ooh, I love that.
I give 3 days. I said, after the 3 days, after I'm still frustrated, angry, whatever.
Yep.
Wendy, you said 3 days. This is day 3. Let it go.
Yep.
And I do that. And as I'm telling you, I have my ex-CEO's face in my mind. I know every time I say 3 days, because I tell him, sometimes he comes to me for ideas or whatever. And I would say, hey, when we get to this point, we can do this. When we get to that point, we can do this. Kind of strategizing with him. And he would always look at me. It's so predictable. He would say, why wait till then? Why not now?
Ooh.
So when I said that 3 days, I'm like, okay, Jeff, maybe it's 2 days then. So whatever works for you, right? Whatever you need to just get it out of your system.
It's just, but I think it's more about giving yourself permission. Like, I need to allow myself to feel this. And if I need to sit in it, I'm going to give myself up to 3 days. I may not. I may be able to move through it in the moment. But I think just giving yourself permission rather than like, suck it up, buttercup, get back to work.
Yes.
Very different than saying, you know what? I'm going to give myself up to 3 days.
Yeah.
Because we don't give ourselves permission to feel. We don't give ourselves permission to process, to move through it. We think back to work. You got other things you got to get to. That to-do list is a mile long, whatever it is. We don't allow ourselves to feel what we need to feel and move through what we need to move through. So I love that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, why not? Like, why to train ourselves to be able to do it in the moment? And I think I just mentioned this on the podcast a couple weeks ago about how I am much quicker at being able to recognize when I'm triggered. I can notice it in the moment.
Yeah.
But what I'm working on is being able to just what he said, like, why not now? Why can't I address it right now? In the moment?
Yes.
Like, I still feel like I need that little bit of a buffer to sit with it myself, to come back and process and think about, oh, this is what I would have done different, and then go back and remedy it or do whatever. But why not in that moment? And that takes training because my ego is like, because that's scary because you can't control the outcome that way. And you're not prepared enough. I need like a game plan, a friggin' manual.
No, and the more you do it, the easier it is, the faster you get. This summit that we were at, I learned this. They said, they draw a map, right? You're living your life, you're going around, and then you dip because something failed that you wanted, it didn't happen, you did it wrong, you made a mistake. That's called a dip. And then you stay in the dip and then you come up. Eventually you come up, right? You get back. And then you dip again and then this is life. Just like that. But when you step back from this graph, it's a linear. You didn't grow. You think you did. You think you failed and then you correct it and you come back up. You think you've grown, but actually you step back up. So the trick we learn is that when you dip, the longer you stay in that dip, the deeper you get, the harder it is to rise back again. So once you have a failure, the faster you get out of it. So it's just like what you said. Why wait 3 days, right? Why not now? Why don't you figure it out? Then when you go back up, it's called ascension. You do a little better than you were before. So now the graph, instead of being linear, you are doing ascension. It doesn't mean you don't have dip. You still have the dip. You still have the dip. But overall, when you step back, it's ascending, right? Now we got to think, okay, when I get back, I'm going to do a little bit better.
Right. What can
1%.
And sometimes it's just about, what can I learn from this? Like when you,
yeah.
And I just had a moment like this last week where it felt like, just a massive blow. And it felt like a breakdown. And immediately it felt like God was just giving me sign after sign, like, you know how this works. We have that little breakdown because it always leads to your next breakthrough. What do you need to learn from this? What are these old patterns that this breakdown is trying to break away to help rebuild? Again, even a little bit taller, a little bit stronger.
Yes.
But you're right. If I just sat in that and let myself sit in it and sit in it and sit in it, I'm not taking away. Like, what am I supposed to be learning from this?
In the pit.
Yeah. We just sit there and think, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
That's what this is. That.
Correct.
But if you can quickly start to think, okay, I'm going to feel this. This sucks. But how is this happening for me? What is this trying to teach me?
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
100%. Yes.
Next day, it was like, let's go.
Yes. And I want to tell you guys that when I go around telling people my story, I wrote the book not for anyone to feel sorry for me.
Right.
Really. Because I tell you, when I was thinking about what I want to do after retirement, I thought to myself, the epiphany came. This was one of the biggest defining moments was 2 years ago, just 2 years ago. I decided to write the book. When I was younger and going through the darkest time of my life, I was in my late 20s, early 30s. That was the darkest time in my life. And I remember sitting there looking up and I said, God, why are you giving me so much pain? I said, you said you are not going to give me more than I can take, right? More I can handle. I can't take this pain anymore. I remember those defining moments you remember. I said it to him. And I said, whatever it is you want me to learn, tell me now. I can fix it because that's the way I am. I can fix it and we can move on. I cannot take this pain anymore.
Right.
Silence. So fast forward 30 years, right? 30 years. I sit there and I look at my notes and my journal and say, oh my gosh, Lord, I now know. Because I always say, I know you have a purpose for me in my life. You're putting me through all these pain for a purpose. It cannot be without a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But ladies and gentlemen, 30 years I waited for that purpose. And it came 2 years ago. I looked at it. I said, oh my goodness, my mission is so clear. I am helping me 30 years ago.
Ooh, ooh.
I'm helping people who are going through that, stuck, minimized, ostracized, disregarded, disrespected, unseen. I am helping that person be able to get out of it faster than I was able to myself. So now I have a group of people that I work with on personal development. And I always say sometimes people have a hard time trying to come up with their mission. I'm the one that put out my hand high up. My mission is so clear. I am so passionate about this. I want to teach what I have done to a person like me sitting. That's why I have been so fortunate. Some of the angels in my life were HR people in my other companies. They provided a safe space for me to be able to articulate what I'm going through. And at that time, I still didn't tell the whole truth. I just said, my husband is sleeping with other women or whatever, and I'm struggling with that. I didn't tell anybody he beats me too. I thought, well, maybe having an affair is a lighter sin. Trying to still protect him.
Still protect
The reputation, my ego, right? I cannot, I stepped out one day, not HR. HR is very good. They provide that confidentiality. So don't ever be afraid. I have so many tools where I help the HR develop tools to help a person who's sitting. I don't care how big your company is or how small it is. It can be 50 people, or 30 people, or 30,000 people. There is someone sitting in that audience, sitting in your employee pool that is struggling with something, body image, struggling with abuse, just whatever, right? Maybe struggling with some mental problems. And they are afraid to say out loud because they need their job, just like me. I need my job. I have 2 kids. I got to put food on the table. But I was so afraid to say anything afraid of being judged. Or laughed at. I'm actually ashamed. I'm ashamed that because I took a really bold move and trusted somebody. And because I thought she was really nice, and I told her, I just said quietly, I said, my husband beats me. At the top of her voice, in my office, and people are just outside, right? Wendy, why did you let your husband beat you? Maybe she was surprised and she didn't tone down her voice. She was so loud. And people in the back outside is like, what are they talking about?
Isn't that interesting though? Why would you let your husband beat you? It's like, because that's what I know. To anyone else, that seems ridiculous. Why would you for a second let anyone do that to you?
Yes.
But when you know the story, it makes total sense why you allowed that to happen.
And if you've been there, if you've been abused or marginalized, sometimes your mindset, you're not strong enough, or you don't have the tools to get yourself out of it.
Right.
It's not like you enjoy being beaten. Right? I'm not letting him beat me, but I'm not stopping him. I think that's the thing. And I was just like so shocked. And the very first person I told, and I didn't even tell my family. We all don't talk about things like that.
Right.
When I wrote this book, I took a big risk.
Huge risk.
I know several of my siblings would never talk to me again.
Yeah.
I took that big risk. I did. I said, I have to do this.
You have to do this because how many thousands, maybe millions of people are you going to help save through this book?
Yes. Yes.
And that's the hardest part about being in this position is the sacrifices that you have to make with people that you love because your mission is so big.
Yes.
And
yes.
God knows it's going to be hard. It's like, I'm sorry, there's going to be people that are taken out of your life, but I need you to do this work because you're going to save thousands more.
Yes. And I used to hear people say, I'm so glad it happened to me that now I can teach this or whatever. I'm like, oh, this is just so hokey. I used to think that. Now I am that person. I'm not glad it happened to me. It shouldn't have happened. It's the most horrible, most devastating thing that can happen to a human being, right? But I am not sorry that it happened. And I told God when I sat here in Madison and I saw the light bulb came on, I said, thank you, Lord. It took him 30 years to respond to me. But guys, he was working on me. I was not the person I was, and I wasn't ready to communicate, to share my story. I wasn't ready. I was so focused on my job. I was so focused. Security is very important
I was just
to me.
going to say, that was
It's
a way
just-
out.
I
If you
think
didn't have that
yes.
security, there's no way out. And so that for you,
Yes.
all of
And
this,
it's my outlet. My work is my outlet. They say men do that, but for me, it was me. It was my outlet. Sometimes you listen to music or you play some instrument or to get away from that. Work was that for me.
that's the gym for me. Full circle.
Healthier. Believe me. So that was my thing. Now, of course, I'm a different person and he knows it is time for me. And I can't say it enough. I am so passionate because I know what it's like. I know I'm just suggesting in my book that this is what I do. Maybe you want to try it. It's not going to change you overnight, but if you do it consistently, it will. It changed me.
Yeah. And everything I read in there was like, yes, like this is inner child work 101. It's how you recreate that level of safety within yourself. It's how you learn how to regulate yourself. It's how you learn how to show up at work, even though
Yes.
life is hard.
Yes.
It allows everything you put in there. And when I heard that part of your book, they're like, hey, here's how I did this. I was like, oh, this is so beautiful. And it was spot on and
Good.
so
Thank
beautifully
you.
written
Thank
with
you.
how we can move through these things. And so your story does not define you. And you gave people very clear tools on how to work through those things
Yes.
in the moment and how to
Yes.
thrive as an adult and get out of survival mode.
Yes.
Because we don't
Yes.
realize as adults how many of us are still functioning in survival mode.
Yes. Yes.
And then we beat ourselves up because we're not where we want to be in our career and in our lives and in our marriages and all these things. It's like, you're still in survival mode. You haven't learned how to thrive yet.
Yes.
Because we won't look at our story. We won't go there and honor that inner child and honor that experience. And so we stay stuck there.
Yeah.
And we're
Yes.
functioning as
Yes.
adults. But that little boy or girl is running the show majority of the time.
Yes. And
Out of fear, out of insecurity, out of
Yes.
unworthiness.
yes, it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. There are days that I put on a brave front. I've done it for 40 years.
Well, no one in the sauna would know that this is your
Yes,
story.
yes.
No one. She comes in the sauna and you are literally like this beautiful ray of sunshine, the kindest, sweetest. I mean, no one would know that this is your story. The first chapter, I was like, well, what? What?
Yeah.
I was so fascinated because it's not what you see. That's not what you present. And we don't all walk around with this billboard of our stories on here.
Yeah.
But how beautiful that you can be that.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm expert in this, hiding my feelings, right?
Yeah, right here.
I'm expert. I had a boss who once in a like a team meeting, he looked at me and says, hey, guys, if Wendy has a problem, the world will be in trouble. That's the gal I am. I hide it so well. And I think back, that's my mom.
It's your mom.
You
Yep.
model what you see, right? You behave what you see. And then I said, that's my mom. She's happy-go-lucky. But if somebody will look at her from the street, they will think she's a happy woman, happily married, 8 kids. you know?
Yeah. Oh.
And then when I was growing up in my teens or whatever, they all think she's my sister. She looks very young for her age. Can you imagine? She's not stressed or whatever. She's able to let go at that time. Maybe she's in her quiet moments of her time, just like me in the quiet moments of my time.
Yeah.
I switch off at work.
Yeah.
And then on the way home, I think about all these things. I allow myself to kind of
Yes.
think. When I get home, I switch on that switch again. Because why? Time for my kids.
Yeah.
Read storybooks, make sure they have their bath or whatever. And then we read and we have dinner together and then we go to bed. And then I sit in the living room by myself. That's when I let the tears flow. I let my anger come out. I think about all these things and I think I'm going to do this to him. I'm going to do that to him. I don't. Because guess what? God is watching me, right?
Yeah.
And I do also have a trick. I tell you guys, I'm always nervous when I'm going to present. And how do you become a good speaker? Speak. How do you become a good presenter? Present, right? So I'm always presenting. I'm always talking. So every time I go into a high-level executive presentation, I imagine, for those of you who have a faith, who believe in something, I believe in God. So I always said, take my hand. I actually imagine him taking my hand as I walk into the room. This is little things. And what I'm saying, you don't have to do this, but you have other things that you might be.
Some people say
able to
imagine them
think.
sitting in their underwear. She holds God's hand.
Yes, I hold God's hand. Yes. And I walk into the room confident and then I go from there. And then that fear is not that it's gone. It's still there, but I am brave now. I project a brave and confident and strong front, right? In my career at one time, my team called me the Dragon Lady.
Oh, I love this.
Because they think nothing rattles me. Does it rattle me? Yes, absolutely. But if you read my blog sometimes, I do say that if your team, just like your kids are watching, your team is watching you. Your team is watching you. When in adversity, leadership in adversity is one of my topics that I talk about. How do you project that confidence? Your team is looking for you to project that confidence. And if you are scared and you're nervous, you are angry, or you're lashing out, they think, oh dear, this is not good.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are calm and you have a plan and you tell them, even if you don't have a plan, be that being vulnerable, Brene Brown, we learned that from her, right? Being vulnerable does wonders when you are in management. When I was in telecom, oh my gosh, we are laid off when the telecom crashed, layoffs. We did it wrong. Now I know. We did it every week. We are cutting people. Now I know we have to cut deep and cut once. Yeah. So that people get to normalize, process their feelings, they get back to normal.
Yeah.
But we were cutting and cutting and cutting every week, every month. It's too often people are uncertain. They come to me and said, cut 50 million because I was in procurement. There's a spending money, so I need to cut, right? Spending. Cut 50 million. What is the biggest cost? I asked my boss, where did the 50 million come from? So US is the biggest division. We need to cut 75 million. So we just pull it out of the air, 50 million to the US overnight. So guess what? Employees' cost are the biggest cost. So when you need to cut, unfortunately, this is just life, right? You have to cut employees. And it's sad. Be honest, be frank. The company is not able to make payroll. This is the way it is. It's never easy. But when you project that confidence and that strength, it really helps the rest of your team gather together and say, hey, maybe even if she doesn't know, she's got our backs. We have to make decisions that's not easy. Now, looking back at yourself, same thing. Mm-hmm. You have to make those decisions to help yourself.
That may require change. That may mean cutting things out. What do I need to do to take care of me, to honor me, to support this journey that I'm on? Mm-hmm. It's not always easy.
Yes.
Sometimes we think about like, oh, I can do this and I can do that, but we don't always think about the things that might have to go away. And that could be your favorite hobbies. It could be people. I mean,
especially toxic people, talking about that is important. I used to have a relative that every time I talk to her, after I hang up, I feel so depressed. Those are the people that you need to, because they are relative, you can't cut them. You don't choose them. Friends, you can cut, but relatives, you don't choose them. So what you do is just lessen the contact.
Right.
And then she's not talking to me anymore anyway because of this book. So
Well, that took care of it.
that's okay. That took care. But that's fine.
But it's people that aren't willing to look at their own story and their own truth and would rather it stayed swept under the rug.
Yes. And that's the worst thing is we need to confront it and then manage it.
And knowing that it isn't anyone's fault, because if you were to look at your dad's story and your mom's story and their childhood stories, you would start to be able to make sense of why they did the things they did and why he rationalized that it was okay for him to have a mistress in the house. Something in his childhood experience made that seem okay. And his ego rationalized that too.
Yes.
And you can start to make sense of all of that and have some understanding, maybe
Yes.
love, compassion,
Yes.
maybe forgiveness.
Yes.
When you can see it from a lens of how is his ego trying to protect his inner child?
Thank you for bringing that up, Tami. You're spot on, because I hated my dad. I hated my dad with a vengeance. I hated him. I wanted to do so many things to him because he was hurting my mom. Today, I love my dad. I really do, because I was able to see now as an adult. I was able to understand, and I was able to see it now, why he did it. In that era, I guess my dad was a general in the army, and he was a high-level person in the army. And at that time, your wealth is measured by the number of households you have, which means number equals number of wives, right? So my grandfather never smoked, never drank, speak fluent Japanese. He's not Japanese, he speaks English. He's a very well educated man. But the one thing, his vice was he has 4 wives, 4 households. He was extremely wealthy, right? So my dad's mom was wife number 1. Yeah. So guess what? She was put aside because wife 2, 3, 4 gets the attention, right? So my dad, I think, vowed to himself he will never do that to his wife. But it is the most cruel thing,
right,
to make your wife, but he couldn't see it. He
thought he was doing a good thing.
Yes.
That's how ego is.
He wasn't going to abandon my mom when he got his mistress. So he made them live together. He doesn't see it is the most cruel thing in the world.
Right. His ego rationalized that.
Yes.
His ego said, this is the best thing that you can do. This isn't you abandoning your wife, when really in every other sense of the way, yes, it is.
Yes.
And not only that, but that one decision to really heal his abandonment wound from his mom impacted not only your mom, but all of you.
Yes.
And if you wouldn't have broken that cycle, it would have somehow impacted your kids.
Yes.
And that's how this generational stuff happens.
Yes,
but you can see how ego made that okay.
Yes, right. We rationalize, right? Yeah. And then I also saw that he loved me. He really loved me. And he's done a lot for his children. At one point in his life, he made $500 to keep 10 people in the house. 500. How did he do it? I don't know. Growing up, I never felt poor. We actually live in a house in the Royal Navy. The Royal Navy, our neighbors are all Brits, right? And we were British citizens at that time too. But they were all the Royal Navy. And, and I never felt poor. My sisters did when they were growing up. They were very, very, very poor. But like I said, I was the lucky one. So many stories.
Yeah. And honestly, there are so many stories within this story. So I truly encourage anyone to go get this book, get it on Audible. I listen to it because I listen to books, but now I actually want to go back through it again. There's so many things I would highlight, especially in the section where you're giving people actual ways to work through this and realize that, again, your story does not define you. Everyone has a story, but go find the gift in it. Go find the gift in it, because just like you, why are you putting me through these? Like, I have a purpose for you.
Yes.
It's your job to go find it. Do the work to go find it. But so many of us, we just sit in like, well, that's how it always is. That's what it was. If we can all just be brave enough to go into
and work on yourself in the meantime.
Yeah.
Maybe like me, I wasn't ready
right
for what God's purpose is for me. I am now so clear.
Well, and I have to thank you because you gave, I don't know, those of you watching this will see that I was like full blown tears over here because you were speaking directly to me. I felt like God's like, hey, Tami, are you listening to her? Because this is for you. That it took 30 years. And that was part of my breakdown last week, was just like, even with this podcast, okay, you had me do this for what? What is the real purpose of this? And how am I supposed to be helping other people and supporting myself? And and that was part of this lesson, is like,
Good. Very good.
be patient. This
Yes,
is
be
coming.
patient.
Don't give up on this.
And work on yourself, right? Work on yourself. One thing I learned about this business is that you can be grinding every day. You're just doing it. You don't see anything.
Yeah.
But it's happening.
Yeah.
That's why people are like, you're so lucky. Luck has nothing to do with it.
Nothing
It
to do
has
with
something to do with commitment, consistency, and just the faith that it will happen.
I'm like, oh, faith, yes, and you got it.
Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
Right? So yeah, it will happen. Just keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And to trust that, okay, like this is happening for me. There's a purpose for this. I'm going to continue to find this. I'm going to continue to search for the signs, the angels, whatever I need, those little stepping stones to where I'm supposed to be.
Yes.
Because you did, like those people would come into your life and you could see every time they did, it catapulted you to another level.
Yes. Yes.
But we miss that because we're stuck in the doom and gloom of what was.
Yep.
What I love is not only the book, and she has a book signing, which I was like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Like, I feel like I know a celebrity. April 19th, right? At Barnes & Nobles here in Madison.
Yes. 1 to 3 o'clock.
Yes.
Would love it if you guys can come.
Yes, I will absolutely be there. But the other thing that I love about what you're doing, and I want you to speak a little bit to this, is the work that you are doing now. So WW Performance Edge, taking some of this, because you don't hear about this kind of stuff in the workplace. You don't hear about how this kind of stuff is impacting people in their careers. I mean, we see stuff on Instagram and we apply it to maybe our relationships and stuff. But to bring this kind of work in the way that you are into a corporate setting, this is huge. This is game changing.
Yeah, because I think a lot of companies want to improve employee engagement. Why are we not engaged? Because we're distracted by our problems at home, in the workplace even,
how we're triggered at the workplace.
I hate this. I used to have an employee that come into my room and cry and said, I said, what's going on? And she would say, they're always talking about me. They said, why do you think they're talking about you? She said, because they're whispering. I said, Jessica, our internal customers are all around us. They're talking about them.
Right?
Have you ever thought of that? Because she has this childhood problem. Maybe she was marginalized when she was little or ignored or whatever. So I said, even if they're talking about you, just think they're talking about our internal customers. That's why they're whispering. You make your life easier. Right? So there are so many people with so many issues that we are dealing with and so different. So I really believe that's what I spent 35 years of my life, solving problems. There's an issue come up, Wendy, what do? Give direction, help. Maybe you want to try this. I never force people to do my way. I always said, maybe have you considered doing this? Did you want to do this? This book tells you all this. But then I have what I call WW's Wendy Wilson Performance Edge. That's what I do in corporate. People bring me into the company because I was in finance. I started my career in finance. I have a finance degree. And then I went to UT Dallas to take a supply chain because I got, you guys will learn about this in the book, but I got opportunity to go into the procurement organization, which I love. That's why I spend a lot of my career, majority of my career running global procurement organization. So people bring me in to either turn around their procurement organization because it's not working, or to bring, this is what I like the most, is to bring their procurement organization to the next level. Yeah. This is a challenge for me. I love it. It's not always immediate. Change don't happen tomorrow. It happens to step by step, by little progression, right? So I go in and say, okay, so 3 years, 5 years plan, right? We work our way through. We have a plan. So that's what I do in a WW Performance Edge. I coach people individually for executives who want to either go to the next level. I have recently an executive who came through a friend and says she had a bad performance review. she was pegged for a higher executive position. So she's nervous now because she has a bad review, right? So this friend of mine said, Wendy, do you coach all these things that you do? Do you coach? I said, yes. So we had a conversation. So what this person is, she wants to make sure she can move to the next level.
Yeah.
Which is what I do. So I have different levels, 3 different levels of engagement. Yeah, that's what I do. And when I first started this 2 years ago, someone asked me, Wendy, you should be a coach. You're so good at giving advice to people, helping people. You should be a coach. And for some reason, that puts me off. I'm like, no, I'm not a coach. I'm not a coach. I'm an author and a speaker. I'm not a coach. Then those defining moments, right? I always believe that you need to be intuitive. Now I'm very aware. Now I hear 2, 3 people from different sources ask you the same question. God is trying to tell you something. Your message is going to be heard. Wendy, I sent this person, you didn't listen. I'm going to send another one. Another one. So I'm saying, yeah, actually, what is coaching anyway? Then I realized I've been doing it for 30 years. That's what I do. I coach people. I coach my team. I coach my boss. I coach my colleagues. So, and I loved it. I had a discovery call with the person. I really enjoyed it. I really had so much fun talking to her, trying to dig into her story.
Yeah, and that's what makes you a good coach.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it.
Well, that's what makes a good coach is when you can truly see someone. You're not just dealing with the surface level. Okay, here's what happened at work. Here's what happened in the performance review. When you can start to look deeper into why that triggered her, where that fear is coming from.
Yeah.
But also to know that in all of that is the potential, is the gift for her to take all of that and then turn it right around and use it into fuel, turn it into her purpose just like you did. And when you have done that yourself, you can then show other people how to do the same.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, drop this mic. And that is what she's doing, folks.
You are wise beyond your years, Tami.
Oh my goodness.
Very good. You're resonating with me, everything you say. You're an inspiration for me, especially in the gym. I have to tell your people that when I first saw her, I didn't know her, right? And I was in the gym, kind of, what should I do? I do weights and stuff, free weights and stuff. And I saw this woman turning over this half a tire, this big, huge tire. I was like, who the hell is this? Oh, sorry.
No, you can.
Who is she? Oh, then I told her when I met her, when I grow, I want to be like you. But she's an inspiration to all of us. She's just sunshine, a ray of sunshine. And her enthusiasm is just great. Yeah. You got to meet her in person.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to me because that has been a lot of where I've done a lot of my healing and a lot of my processing. And so when I'm flipping the tire, I'm working through emotions. I remember our buddy Corey, who's been on here, he's like, who pissed you off? And I'm like, but this is where I work out rage and anger.
Yes.
And so, and that's why I'm so passionate about that as an outlet, because we don't always give ourselves the opportunity. Like your car ride home, you go from work and something happened and you have to parent. Like in between that time, you're allowing yourself to process your emotions. And that's why, you talk about, I wanted to come back to this, the morning routine that you have and the intentionality you have behind that to go through your mission and your values, because it sets the tone for your day. And it reminds you, go throughout your day with this stuff in mind. The choices that you make, the words that you say, it should all be rooted from here. And that's what working out for me. Like I need to be able to channel that kind of energy and be in that, like, because that's empowered Tami. And I want to take her throughout the day, because if I don't, my wounded child wants to come in and swoop in, and my ego will take over and blow everything up the rest of the day. It's like, I need to start my day with that kind of confidence, with that kind of energy.
Yes.
To be able to set the intention and the tone for my day.
It's a great reminder. And one of my core values is to be kind. And so when I'm out and about, like my errands day, sometimes people piss me off, right? And I always say, but I just read it this morning. That's my core value. I want to be kind. So Wendy, choose to be kind. I let it go. When you start doing this on a regular basis, it really helps. Gratitude is the other one. And I always say at the end of the day, I will write 3 things I'm grateful for that day. Guess what? It helps me throughout the day because sometimes I don't have anything to write.
I need to find something.
You have to thank you for the weather and how many days can you say it didn't snow. So what does it do for you when you put things like that for your challenge yourself, I should say, is that you go about your day looking for something that you can be grateful for. But guys, what a way to live.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of looking for the negative, who's going to give me the evil eye, or who's going to cut in line, or who's going to make a comment about my hair or whatever. You go about your day like, oh, I'm looking for something. Oh, I can write this down on my gratitude journal tonight. It just makes you look at life so differently. And I like those practices. I like these kind of things. So,
well, and that's all about changing your vibration and what you're going to attract back to you, because you are changing your vibrational state in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like what you focus on, you find. If you're going to focus on the good, and you're going to continue to find more examples of that. If you're looking for people to piss you off, you're going to find it. And then you just get more pissed off and you create this vicious cycle. And then that's the state of your life. And then another day goes by, and then a month and a year, and like, wow,
what
I've
a
been
horrible
miserable
person.
SOB.
Yeah. That is so true. That's so true.
When you look for it, and it's in the simplest things, and that gratitude for, maybe it's like, there was a rainbow today, or the sun came out right as I was walking, and I just felt that warmth. Or like someone smiling at you and saying good morning, or maybe a compliment. It's so simple.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need to create those moments.
And it's zero cost.
Zero cost.
Zero cost. It's
costing
free.
Nothing to be kind.
Free to be kind.
Yeah. And if anything,
it just somebody's day.
It increases your energetic currency.
Yes, and makes you feel good, actually, you know? I was at a Culver's, a hamburger place here in Madison, and this young man was so great. I just ordered my food, and I said, I need a receipt, and he printed the receipt, and it was blurred. The ink was gone. I said, oh, you need to change it. I didn't mean for my receipt. I was just telling him, you guys need to change it because I can't read my receipt. He changed it, reprinted the receipt, and came to my table and gave it to me. And I said, oh, thank you. You're so kind. She said, oh, no, can I take your tray? Is this done? And he was so sweet. I like to reward people when they are kind too. So I went to the counter, and he was in the back somewhere. So I asked someone, I said, what is his name? They said, Noel. So I said, hey, Noel, come here. So I want to give him some bucks, you know, and he refused to take it.
Ooh.
He refused to take it. He said, nope, that's part of my service. And then my husband was there with me, and he said, oh, you know, no, she does this all the time.
Oh.
So just, you make her happy if you take it, accept her gift. And he said, no, the thing that's going to make me happy is you guys come back. So guess what? On my journal that night, I said, I met Noel. He was the youngest man that was so responsible and so focused on his work, and he wants to do a good job.
I love that.
Yeah, it was so great, right?
I feel like this could be a whole other podcast, so we should probably wrap it up. But what you said and how your energy shifted when he denied your gift. It was so kind that you did that to me. This is like that law of exchange of giving and receiving. And when you deny someone's gift, whether it's a compliment or a reward, and I do this all the time. This has been a lesson like so many of us have a hard time receiving, and that is a childhood wound right there. And so you now know that you know what that's like to receive a gift, a compliment from someone. So you want to do that for someone. And then they deny you. Did anyone hear her energy when she's like, it's almost confusing. Like, why would you deny my gift? Why would
you do that? Yeah, yeah.
But that's his own stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And luckily he was able to, like, you coming back would be a gift. Like, he made it okay, but, but we do that all the time.
Yes, yes.
Realizing that it kind of cut off the joy that you would have experienced from doing that. And we don't even realize that, oh, you're denying someone the gift of doing something nice for you.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be money, right? I do that, especially at Thanksgiving. I look for 3 people that I want to reward. I prepare a thank you card and put some money in there. That's what I do every year. But my husband, what he likes to do when we're traveling on a road trip and we stop at the breakout area and he goes in and happen the janitor is there. You seldom see them, but if they're there, he gives him a compliment. Thank you for keeping the bathroom so clean.
Yes.
He says every single time this person brightens up with a big old smile on his face. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I think seldom they hear that. Seldom they hear that appreciation. This one doesn't cost a cent.
Right.
I bet you he goes home and tell, hey, guess what? I saw this man using the bathroom. He thanked me for cleaning.
At our core, we all just want to feel seen, valued, appreciated.
Yes. It's so simple thing,
So
simple thing. But does it make you happy? Oh yeah, you better believe it. If you do it, I'm addicted to it.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. And it's contagious. And so continuing to spread that. So, oh my goodness. Wendy, thank you so much.
I've taken a lot of your time. Sorry.
No. They know I could talk for hours and we could continue to talk. I feel like we could dissect this whole book and have many episodes. But I am so excited for people to read your story and for people to find their own healing within your story and know that that was part of your purpose and to be able to love and validate that little girl within you and know this was all for something. And I'm doing some good in the world by helping people heal through our story and through work and all of the things that you're doing there. So
thank you for having me, giving me the space to tell my story. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So I highly, highly, highly recommend this book. I haven't read a book like this in a really long time because it's a lot of, and it turned out to be like a self-help healing book, but in a very different way. Like the ones that I have read are very like, do X, Y, and Z. And this was like a story that you could truly hear yourself in and you could feel the healing, and then to actually give those like tangible tools at the end was really, really fun.
How I did it. So you can try it. Thank you.
It's a beautiful, and it's a painful story, but it's a beautiful story and how you have around it.
I just wanted to touch somebody's life and be able to help somebody. That would be my reward.
It did, because thank you. So, and if I can help anyone through this podcast be able to hear your story as well.
No, this is a really good idea, this podcast, because people need to hear they are not alone.
Not alone. Yeah.
And because you have come from so many different areas, it will hit different people at different times.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it will be very, very effective. I'm going to send it on to my friends.
Awesome.
To listen. I know they need it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if you are in the Madison area on April 19th, you can catch Wendy and her book at Barnes & Noble's from 1 to 3. You can get it's on Amazon. It's on Audible. Any other places?
Spotify. I think Goodreads have them. Yeah.
It's such...
Yeah.
It's a beautiful book. It's a beautiful story. So thank you again for sharing. And how can they find, I'll put all your links to everything, but as far as working with you, coaching with you.
My website is wendycwilson.com and you can find everything there. I do write. I do have an Instagram, which is Wendy Wilson US 7. That I do shorts, just really short.
Yeah, and a blog and all that.
The other thing is that you can learn things from my blog because it's usually a challenge, and then how do you deal with it?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Ooh, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in and holding space for Wendy and her story. And we will see you next week. Thank you.
I do have one message.
Yes.
Before I do have one thing I need to tell you guys. I want you to know that you are stronger than you think. Every challenge is an opportunity for you to get stronger. If little old me can do it, I am so confident that you can too. Okay?
I love that.
Thank you. Bye.
You can do it too, just like Wendy. Live like Wendy.
Yes.
Like Wendy.
If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Awesome. That's a wonderful message to go out on. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody. Oh my gosh, that was so good.